Hey everybody, so I wanted to walk through what I created for Sandra just so everybody can have an idea. Do I want to buy this? Do I want to maybe buy it and have it tweaked a little bit? Or do I just want to have some custom work done? So first I'm going to mention this was done 100% within G Suite, so no information is sent anywhere else. So everything still just falls within the BAA that you signed with them, or that you will sign with them if you're required to be HIPAA compliant. Or I guess I should say if you're a covered entity under the HIPAA privacy rules. Um, so Sandra's situation I felt was a little bit complex. So she does drug counseling, and and so she's got doctors and nurses, and they're having drug tests being run. She's got secretaries, she's got therapists, and they've got group therapy and individual therapy. So all this stuff needed to feed into kind of this overall files, but then also into files about the individual patients as well. So it's there was a lot of different forms, and I'm going to mention too that in her case, since she had so many different forms, I wanted to have those forms go into different spreadsheets because Google does have, like, I think it's a 2 million cell limit. So if you're like a single practitioner and you're not gathering a whole bunch of information about your individual patients, then it's probably better for all that information to feed into a single spreadsheet. Just simplifies things. Um, so and another thing with what Sandra wanted was on the individual patient data, she wanted some things to just reflect, here's the most recent information, right? So I'll go through some of this flow of how this works. So the idea is the secretary, let's just say this guy called in, and so let's pretend this appointment isn't here yet. So the secretary just says, okay, what's your first and last initial, and what's the last four of your social? Probably just say we use that to just maintain for your records, so we can kind of keep track of who you are or whatever. So then puts in his information, and then the secretary would also then, since this is initial appointment, put in the appropriate forms for the initial appointment. So this is like a mental status assessment, and this is like the individual soap note for the therapist, right? So that gets saved. Then Jason comes for his appointment. The therapist, it's sitting on the therapist calendar. Therapist opens this up and says, okay, let me fill out this information. All right, so the therapist fills this out. I already filled one out for Jason, so you don't have to watch me go through that whole thing. One thing I'm going to point out, though, is at the bottom of this, we have this sign off. So that's where the therapist has this information about who they are, signing off on this information. So this is not fully finished, but this is actually fed from this little drop down spreadsheet. So down here is the therapist's. So I don't have this really hooked in yet to push to that particular one. So here's one with doctors, and this one is hooked into the doctor's notes. So once you're done, you just click that button and it pushes it in. And what I like about this is there's less room for error. So if I were to go into the drop down to edit this, then copying in the therapist information into the forms that a therapist needs to sign off on, first off, every time a therapist comes or goes, you're going to have to go in and change that. And you have to go in and change it in each place. And as you're doing that, the more you do it, there's more chance for some error to creep in. So here you change it in one location on this spreadsheet, and it pushes into those forms. And so I have this particular spreadsheet I made that pushes into each of the forms where we wanted that to happen. We could also actually, where we use the patient ID, if you wanted to use the patient ID in a drop down, that's totally doable. So anyway, so they come in, they fill this out, the therapist fills it out, and they submit it. Then there's going to be other situations. So let's look at the doctor's appointment. So say the nurse comes in, they fill out this information for the patient, and go ahead and they submit it. Again, I don't have the nurse sign off hooked into this yet. And then same with this year analysis. They can come in and do this, fill out this information. The doctor is going to fill out the information for the patient. And again, that's going to all be based off of appointments. So there's going to be another doctor's appointment for JL 5555. The doctor just opens up the appointment that he's currently in and he fills in that form. So, and I should, point out that these forms feed into kind of like global spreadsheets. So initially it goes, you fill out the form, it goes to the global data, and then we have patient spreadsheets that kind of suck everything out of the global data for a specific patient. So, and I'll show you how that works too in a second here. All right, so you've got that, and then same thing with counseling. You have the treatment plan that might be part of like the initial appointment, or it might be updated. Same with the mental status assessment, and then also with the counselor soap notes. So all those would be sitting inside of a calendar event. All the therapist does is just open a calendar event, open each of those forms, and then just fill them out. And right now, in this case, you would ask, okay, what's your first and last initial and the last four of your social. So I will go ahead and show this. So this is group therapy attendance, and the idea here is that they would show up and just sign in for themselves. So they would say, okay, Wednesday at 6 p.m. is a session I'm at. So we'll do Jason Larson and click agree and click submit there. All right, so then here, okay, patient information. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove this one because I just created it. So I'll show you a copy. So this is the process you go through to set one of these up. So I'd probably say JL is, here's this is the patient's file. So like I said, all of that data goes, into global stuff, and then these suck it down. So since I created a new one, the system says, hey, you're trying to pull information from other places that you don't have access to, so go ahead and allow access first, right? But the first thing you'd actually do when you set this up is come to this setup and info, and you do JL 5555. Boom, pop that in there, and then here again. So like I said, it might make it easier if everything is in one spreadsheet or fewer spreadsheets, because then you only have to allow access once or twice as you do this. And actually, wouldn't it be hard to do something over here, like put in some formula for each of the different spreadsheets you would need access to. So you could just come into the setup and just hit allow, and then it would be done for this entire spreadsheet. You just need to allow access like once per spreadsheet. So, right, so, and this is something that probably I imagine like a secretary would do in this particular case up front. Just copy the patient template, come in, change the ID, and then just allow access to the different spreadsheets, right? So, so this is all the individual information from that Jason would have filled out when he first wanted to be in there. This wasn't meant to be like kind of pretty and printable necessarily, but just a way to review and probably double check that information with the patient as needed. So we also, let's see, we filled out for Jason a mental status note. So this is just, on this one, we didn't really feel there was a need to get something kind of prettier or more formatted, so we just left it. This is all you get, and you can review that as needed for that individual patient. Again, and this is all based on that patient ID. It's sucking data from one of the other spreadsheets. So the other thing that we filled out was group therapy. Now this one is this is a special situation. So with group therapy, I think what the reason behind this is we wanted the therapist to be engaged during the group and just jotting down some notes instead of like typing in a whole bunch of things throughout the entire session. And then also we wanted them, oh, sorry, my screen is changing color. It's because of this handy dandy tool I just got. There we go. All right, so I need to just regather my thought on that one. Oh yeah, so we wanted them to stay engaged, but I think that was part of the reason. And then also we wanted them to make sure that they get their notes done and get in and kind of add their details. So, and also keep that sign-in process simple for the patients. So with group therapy, here's what I just submitted as JSON. I'm not sure why it jumped down to number 6, but it did. There's probably some weird little anomaly in here, something that I did earlier. So the therapist would come in and see, okay, here's the most recent group therapy stuff, and there'd be a whole list of them here. And this also gave the therapist an opportunity to check some things. So look at this, for example. So this is the data that was brought in. So let's just say I change it. And over here it says, ooh, that patient ID is not found. So we just say fix the ID in either C, D, or E. So I submitted this just after midnight, so this actually turned out to be okay. But watch, if I change this to Tuesday, then this part actually says, hey, this session doesn't match the sign-in day. So it's just another little quality check to say, wait, he submitted this on a Wednesday, but he said he came on Tuesday. So you might want to just make sure that verify that that's all correct. So the therapist comes in, they check for those errors, correct anything that they need to. So you see here that I have like a little formula that then generates the patient ID that we use. So the therapist comes in, selects the topic, and then that automatically brings in the discussion and also the homework. I'll just fix that real quick. There we go. And then the therapist has to select, okay, yeah, I like my choice of therapist names for this for the time being. And then, Jason was engaged and is making great progress. Okay, so now that the therapist has filled that out over here in Jason's file, we can come to, let's see, I'll just show all group first. So there's all the group therapy notes. We'll allow access again. Not again, we'll allow access to the group therapy data. It's thinking, it'll be there. There we go. So then it pulls in that information, including what they just brought in. And then over here, we've got the most recent group, right? So this sheet, this JL555 Jason Larson sheet has it already in the all group therapy notes, it had access to that data. So now this has access to the data as well. So again, I'll go ahead and fix that. And this, and see, this is something, you could print it, but it's just meant specifically for, if the therapist or the doctor wants to know, okay, what did Jason just most recently learn about in group, they can come here to review it really quick to just get an overview of what they've seen. So, so now in this one, I don't have any nurse notes about JL555, so it says, hey, he's not there. So, so you see I have these most recent ones and then also the ones with all of them. So there you go. That's kind of the the long and the short of what I created for Sandra. And again, her situation is kind of a little bit more complex, I feel like, because of the therapists, doctors, and nurses, and everybody who's involved. And so we can definitely create something that is that is suited for your specific needs. So again, if you are if you were interested and you're still interested, then go ahead and reach out to me. And I will mention too that part of this, when working with Sandra, was, I've had a fair amount of back and forth with her, done a handful of videos of, hey, here's how this all works, because I recognize it's there are parts of this that are, can be a little bit difficult. So we want to make sure that you guys are happy and also that you're successful. Because, this is something I'm partially doing just because for me, I'm just passionate about helping people to be efficient and effective. And so we want to make sure that you guys are successful and that this saves you time and effort and money in your practices so that you can invest those things how you would rather spend them. And also, as Nate mentioned, this data is yours and you get to keep it. And one thing I also like about this particular way that I set this up is the data is never gone. Like, all of this data is always here. When you don't necessarily ever come in and wipe something out and then restart it, and sorry, I should be. I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad quality of the or anything like that of what Joey created. For me, I personally really like the idea of the actual data being there. And in his situation, the way that physical therapy one worked was you would print it out to a PDF and then come in and kind of like wipe out what you had done on the in the system. And then you would just have to go back to that PDF if you needed to refer to it. This way, in this system, you're able to kind of just keep all that data is always there, and it's just a matter of getting to it. So all the patient information will always be sitting here in this folder with your list of patients. And if you ever need to get to any of the global data, I think it's right here. Wait. If you ever need to get to that global data, you're able to just go right here and say, okay, here's everything that I've ever captured on these things. So this is where all the forms go into, and you can review it. You can make some updates or modifications if you need to, or corrections, I guess I should say. And with patient information, if you ever need to update an address or something like that, you can just go to it right in here. So that information is always there, always ready to be used. So yeah, again, let us know if you'd like any help with this, and we'll be happy to do so.